glad to be with you again. Our third and final installment of talking about leadership. The first time we talked about how you earn your team's trust in turbulent times. Last month was the challenges of first-time leadership. And today, as Pamela mentioned, it's about some things to consider as you scale your businesses. As entrepreneurs, it's one thing we're all focused on, right? Is how do we get to scale? How do we get from being just this one-person shop to scale and growth over time? And so today we're going to take a look at that. First thing I'm going to ask you in a moment are two fundamental questions, and your answers, which you can share if you like, but I want you to have in your mind as we go through the rest of the presentation. And then we're talking about some pitfalls of leadership, and we're going to revisit some from last month on the entrepreneurial pitfalls, but add some on scaling as well. And then we're talking about 5 levels of leadership. First, 5 levels on how you lead. So as a human, as a person, how you lead. And then as an entrepreneur trying to scale your business, where you focus, also 5 levels. And keeping with the theme of 5, the last thing we're gonna talk about is the final 5. So it's the classic, if you get nothing else from any of these presentations I've given, I hope these 5 things stay with you as far as how to grow and become more effective as an entrepreneurial leader. So let's start with question number 1 of the fundamental question. Why would someone want to work for you? Right? And I ask that question, as I ask all questions, from a place of curiosity and respect. Why does someone want to work for you? Because when you make an offer to someone and they say yes, they're saying yes to you and to the company. So what is it about you that's going to attract people to work for you? What about your leadership style? What about your vision? What are those things that are going to make someone say, this is the person I want to follow? This is the person I want to be my leader? Because we don't think about it that much maybe when we say yes to a job offer, but as we interview with the process, we are trying to discern who my boss is going to be like, what are they going to be like, and why do I want to work for him or her? So why would someone want to work for you? Second question is, why would someone want to work for your company? So there's 2 parts to me saying yes to a job offer. There's me saying yes to you as my soon-to-be new boss, and I'm saying yes to your company. And so think about that from an entrepreneurial perspective. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs are small companies, obviously, right? And so they have a vision and a belief, and they're driving their business forward, but they are a small business, and they're not known or maybe grounded yet. So there could be some risk involved and excitement involved, right? So why is someone going to say yes to your company? And it could include things on the space that you're in, the products that you serve, your marketplace, your vision, right? As an entrepreneur, I mean, you are selling your vision not only to investors, but to employees who are investing themselves in your business. So a lot of things to consider in terms of why they're going to want to work for you and your company. So with that in mind, as we go through this, keep your answers in mind for that. Many years ago, I listened to a speaker who talked about this equation, and it's always stuck with me. And his point was that we rarely control our situations we find ourselves in. I mean, sometimes things just happen, right? The pandemic, obviously, right? Things happen to us, to our business, that we can't control. But the thing that we always can control every time is our response to that situation. No matter how bad the situation is or good it is, we own the response, we control it. And because of that, we control the outcome, or we influence the outcome. Situation plus response equals outcome. So your situation is you're trying to scale. You're trying to scale your business. Whether you are 2 months into this or 2 years into this, you're trying to scale. So my challenge to you to think about is to be a leader who can scale your business. You have got to address your shortcomings as a leader as you grow as a leader so that your company gets the leader it deserves. Because every time the business goes up a notch and scales, how we lead has to change as well. We have to scale our own leadership, our own abilities, our own effectiveness in order to be the leader that our company is looking for and needs to continue to scale. So we're going to review these. These are 5 from last month, you remember, and these are common pitfalls for entrepreneurs or leaders. And the first is that great ideas don't equal great leadership, right? As entrepreneurs, very likely you saw a problem that was not being solved, or maybe not being solved as well as you thought it could be. You saw a need going unmet. And so you created a product or service or company in some shape or form to fill that need, right? Pretty straightforward view of the world for entrepreneurs. However, having a great idea and seeing that need, while brilliant, doesn't necessarily make you a great leader. Those things aren't always directly connected. So a common pitfall is I've got a brilliant idea, I start the business, but I'm not sure how to lead myself or it effectively. Which gets to the second point of unable to lead themselves. If you're a one-man shop or one-woman shop, one-person shop, if you can't lead yourself, all the things that leaders do, organize, vision, manage the details, manage the strategy. If you can't do that well for yourself, it's going to be hard to lead anyone else. Can't build a team. At some point when you scale, you're going to have to add people, which is great. That means your business is growing, it is scaling. But it's a skill to identify what roles do I need, what kind of person do I want, how do I hire them, how do I grow them, how do I have them work together as a team versus a group of people. If you can't build a team as an entrepreneur, it's going to be very hard to scale. You got to balance the workloads. Oh my gosh, right? If you're that one-person wrecking crew, you get it. You're the chief marketing officer, chief people officer, chief accounting, CFO. You're all those things. As you start to add people, now you got to balance workload because you're still keeping on some things yourself. Plus, you are delegating and having people do those things. So now you got to balance that work amongst your team. It can be very challenging for some entrepreneurs. Fifth one is difficulty focusing. You probably and maybe got started on your business because you have a passion for that product or service. There's something about that really spoke to you, that got you excited when you saw the opportunity. And that's often where we drift to and we spend our time, even as we grow our business. But we have to focus on multiple things as a founder, as a president, as a leader of a business. And so sometimes we're challenged with focus because we gravitate toward the things that we really enjoy and like the most versus everything that has to be done for business. Some pitfalls as you think about scaling. And the first is a fierce loyalty to the first few. So the first few employees that you hire are oftentimes people that can do almost anything. It's sort of like that Swiss Army knife. Because you're small, everyone's scrambling. One person is answering the phones, others shipping out products, doing marketing. People wear multiple hats. It's just, you have to. You're a small business. You don't have the luxury yet of being very focused. And so you find that first few that help you, work the long hours, overtime, and they make this business successful, right? And it is. And you're scaling. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Then you reach a point to realize that what you need is more specialized talent to continue to scale. And then you may realize that the people that helped you get there are not the ones who can help you go to the next level. And that is a blast of cold Arctic air on a day when you realize, wow, the people who are loyal to me, helped me get here, are not the ones that are going to take me where I need to go. That's a hard conversation. So I had a mentor once tell me, never hire someone that you can't fire. And that sounds really blunt and brusque, and it's kind of intended to be that way, but the key is whoever you hire at some point, they may not scale with you. They may not have the background, the experience you need to keep your business going. So if you could be potentially blind to it, or so stuck in that I can't let him go, I can't let her go. They were with me those first 3 years when we were just working crazy hours, but they may not be the people to help you go and grow and scale. So that loyalty to the first few can be a common pitfall. Stuck on a product roadmap, or it can be the service roadmap, that you have whatever it is that you are selling, that you're in business for, and you have a vision for that. If you don't adapt that vision based on the marketplace, you're liable to get stuck or get behind or be unsuccessful. So people get so in love with their vision of their product or service, they're not able to make any adjustments. They're able to pivot based on whatever situation may pop up. So you have to be able to be adaptable. Focus on the wrong growth opportunities. Now, granted, every strategy, hopefully is informed, but even large companies, they get it wrong in certain cases. So you want to have the not just the wherewithal and the research and the intelligence, but to know, am I really focused on the wrong things and or the right things, excuse me. And if you see it's not right, can you get off of that quickly, right? Because if you focus on the wrong opportunities, obviously your business is going to be impaired, scaling is going to be harder, and it may be a death knell for some companies. Single-mindedness. For a leader who does one thing, again, maybe because that's what they love doing, or that's their only focus, and they don't think about the other pieces. As you're scaling, you're moving out of the day-to-day, right? You're now thinking about what happens in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. What are the market trends? Your job is more to be prepared for the future versus what you are today. But a single-mindedness, if that single-mindedness is about what's in front of you, could hurt the company that tries to scale. And the last thing for scaling pitfall potentially is if you're task-oriented. And some people would just they like having the lists, they write things down, they scratch them off. I will admit that, and there's been times in my life, even recently, where I've done something, written it down on the list, and scratched it off myself because I feel better about it. I got stuff done. It's a great feeling. We all like a sense of accomplishment. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be task-driven, even as a leader of your company, but that can't be your primary orientation as to scale, because you won't get where you're going because you'll be so focused on right here in front of you. You're not focused on other things that are really important to grow the business. All right, talk about how you lead. And these are the 5 levels, and this is a tribute to John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership. If you've read his books, I'm a big fan. I think they're very straightforward, practical, simple language, and very thought-provoking about growing your leadership. His first one he talks about is position, meaning that you're the leader because if you're on a big company, somebody put your name in a box and said, these people report to you, right? The person who works for you has no choice. You are a position leader. You're the manager of blank, the director of blank, the deputy assistant of this. You're the position leader, right? It's where almost, of course, most leaders start when they're first promoted to become leader, that they're a position leader, right? It requires no effort or ability to achieve. It's just, I'm the boss in the traditional sense of the word. You don't want to stay there, obviously. And by the way, few people want to work for someone who's just that, because that's not going to be very engaging or a lot of fun. The second level is the permission level of leadership, right? So now people work for you because they choose to, right? You have demonstrated to them enough trust and belief, the way you communicate, the way you listen, the way you act, those things have formed a strong relationship and trust. And so now it's like, yeah, I give you permission to be my leader. Does that sound a little weird and odd? Maybe, but think about the time we live in right now with the great reshuffle, resignation, whatever you want to call that. People have choices and options, and they are leaving position leaders in droves, plus other reasons too. But now is the time people are thinking about who do I want to work for and where do I want to work? Back to those 2 questions. And permission level is you have earned the trust and sort of the right to lead those people. At the production level, this is where if we were kind of bell curving this, it truly would be looked that way. 3, a lot of people at the production level, and there's great motivation to get the work done, no matter what it is. If it's in manufacturing, if it's a service industry, it doesn't matter. And it's because the trust and the relationships between the people and the leader is so strong. The employees, the team, they're not thinking as much about the leader in terms of, can I trust him or her? Are things going to be okay? They're super engaged, very focused, and it shows up on the spreadsheets. It shows up on engagement surveys, on attrition being lower, because people are getting things done and not worried about the leadership because, again, of his or her behavior at that point. 4th level is people. And this is a really cool place from a leader perspective because now you're growing other leaders. Your sphere of influence has now expanded tremendously from just the people who work for you, report to you, to that you have now created other leaders. And whether they work for you or not doesn't matter. It's the fact that you, probably down in the production and permission area, grew their talent. You saw capabilities in them. They came to you and said, I want to become a leader. And you said, great, I'll work with you on that. So whether they work for you or not, at level 4, you are known as someone who grows leaders. And that is a really satisfying and powerful place to be in terms of how you lead. Your impact is very significant at this point. And level 5 is pinnacle. And that's people follow you because of your reputation in total, who you are, how you have led, the results you've generated, how you generate those results, right? Did you leave a trail of bodies in your wake, or are you a very positive, engaging leader who brought people along with you, right? And they transcend any one company or industry. They are few that are out there at this level, but they are known because of how they lead, and not just the results they've generated for their business, but how they led people to get to those results. So 5 levels in terms of how you lead as a human, basically, all right? So talking about where you focus, trying to, as far as scaling goes for your business, 5 levels. And this comes down to what problem are you trying to solve at that, wherever you are in your business, because those problems vary. I'm not talking about necessarily today's problem, like in the life of your business, what problem are you trying to solve right now? And then this gets to what is the right time and right action based on what to focus on to scale. And so this chart borrowed from Dan Martell from the SaaS Academy, and even though he's all around SaaS, I think whatever service or product you offer, the principles still apply to this. And so he has a table of revenue, monthly recurring revenue, focus, leadership skill, and I'll give you a little context for each of these. And so at the first level, your monthly revenue is about $1,000. Your focus as a leader is all about the product. I mean, you're getting off the ground. It's an embryonic stage of product or service that I'm trying to get to, right? And so you're trying to cultivate and grow this thing, this product or service, into something that's very marketable. The only leadership skill you need is yourself, because it's probably just you. At $1,000 a month, not a lot of people, or you're not hiring a lot of people at that point, obviously. And you're trying to build what people want. You're trying to get that product or service to be something truly competitive in the marketplace. Second level, $10,000 a month. There you're focused on promotion. This is about the marketing piece of it. So you've got the product or service to a good place. It's competitive. People are buying it. Trends are going the right direction. And so now you're in heavy promotion perspective. And the specialization is around marketing channels at scale. How are you getting to be known for your product or service on a reliable way? And how are you beginning to scale that awareness and system so that it is affordable in that regard? So the specialization again is about how really the marketing becoming known for what it is that you're in business for. At $100,000 a month, the focus is on process, because clearly we've jumped considerably in both in revenue and what we'll need in scale at that point. So you're really thinking about systems for your business. It could be about automation. It could be about your processes. But now you're really thinking about, how do I build for scale? Because you're obviously over $1 million a year. And if things are still going well, you're about to launch even higher. And if you don't have strong systems and processes at this point, it's going to be a bit of a house of cards if you keep growing. Now, and the funny thing about growth is, while it's greatly exciting, it can hide a lot of sins and mistakes as you grow, because, like, you know what, I'll get to that later. Right now, oh my gosh, I got so many customers, we're growing. We'll get to that later. Well, if later comes further up, you will find some systemic problems in some of your processes, which, by the way, is that really interesting to a lot of people? I mean, I love processes. So for me, it is. But for a lot of entrepreneurial leaders, it's like, do I have to spend time on something that feels almost boring, right? And the answer is, if you want to scale with strength and structure, you really do, so that can be repeatable and scalable. So now you're at $250 a month on your revenue, right? So now your focus is people. And one thing I want to emphasize, it doesn't mean that people aren't important to this point. This says that with this level, if you're still the day-to-day leader of this company, you haven't hired a CEO yet, or a president, you need to focus on your executive leadership team. You know, who is leading the business with you? Who are you leading at this point? What's their focus? So now the roles are probably very specific, talent's very specific, and you're a servant leader. You're working for them. Your whole focus is, you know, how do I wake up, how do I help them be better today in their particular roles? So you assemble that team and you work for them. And finally, at $1 million plus a month, you're all focused on protecting the business. It doesn't mean sitting and waiting and not growing. It just means that you probably now are either a threat to someone else, right? or you're on someone's radar screen to maybe try to acquire you, which may be part of your plan, which is great. But at this level, protecting your business, protecting your market space, and your place in that market becomes very important. And your leadership skill there is you want to stand out. You really want to be known. And whether that's known in the city of Little Rock or the state of Arkansas or regionally or nationally, whatever your market space is, you want to become known for a variety of reasons. One is it is a personal brand, and that's what draws people to work for companies. Going back to that question, why does someone want to work for you and your company? At this level, if you stand out in a positive way, people will seek you out. They'll seek, I want to come work for this company and this person. She's a phenomenal leader. Look how she's brought this company. I want to, be a part of that, be a part of that process. And so really standing out at this level is important to your personal brand. And again, protection of everything you built to this point, not legal protection. It's really that marketplace protection more than anything else to make sure you're there. So those are the 5 levels to think about in terms of where you focus as leaders. And then last thing I have is, again, the final 5 for leadership. So 5 things that if you take away nothing else from our three sessions together, these 5 things about how to become an even stronger and more effective leader. And the first is stay self-aware, right? Great leaders, if you listen to them and read about their stories, they were very good throughout their entire career of saying, what do I need to work on? What do I need to work on, right? Because they recognize that leadership, personal leadership development is a non-ending, journey. And they're always looking at how can I get better at being a leader, and recognizing as they grew, either by traditional position of level or by responsibilities, that they had to adjust and develop their leadership appropriately. So face your shortcomings, run towards them. And by the way, as a leader, if you share that with your team and say, I'm always trying to get better as a leader, you've automatically made it good and safe for them to say, well, if she's trying to get better, then I should too. So you create trust and understanding. You want to commit to the craft of leadership. I mean, I view leadership truly as a craft, whether it be like you are a blacksmith, or you work with wood. I mean, you're an artist. It's truly a craft that people spend their entire lives becoming good at, and not for accolades, not for awards. It's because they're passionate about being a great leader for people that they lead. They want to have that kind of impact. And there truly is an art and science piece. The art, to me, the art piece is humans. We are emotional. We can be messy. We have bad weekends. Things happen to us. We also have some great things too. I don't paint a dark picture, but the art of it is people, right? The science is the process, and not just process on the business side, but even the process about how you grow yourself and lead. And we talked about last time, understanding your leadership style. So what style do you want to be, and your learning style as a leader. Those 2 things kind of get to the art and science about how are you best going to focus on and become a leader. How do you best learn? Do you want to be listening to podcasts? Do you want to read books? Doesn't matter what you pick, as long as you pick something that helps you become better. Seek feedback. It really is a gift when someone offers feedback, even if it's maybe a little snarky or makes you a little hot under the collar. Just know that there's probably a nugget of truth in there somewhere. So if you can set aside your emotion for a moment and say, thank you, can you tell me more about that? Why do you think that? In a curious way, not in a antagonistic way. But if you embrace the gift of feedback, and again, be someone who is known for, man, he loves feedback. He takes that and he constantly gets better. And think about, we always use sports examples too much, but almost even musicians, right? Especially like classically trained musicians, they were constantly getting feedback on how to play instruments better. So because they're committed to the craft, and to commit to the craft, a big subset of that is getting feedback and then acting on that. And again, as you do that, the people you lead are going to be like, well, okay, if she wants feedback, maybe I should get feedback because she's serious about that. And it also puts you in a better place than to give feedback to your team, right? I'll give you some feedback about how that meeting went yesterday. You had a conversation. So embrace that gift, because in my mind, how we were taught growing up that you should write a thank you note after an interview. Common sense, right? Simple to do, and how, at least in my experience, so few people do that. Now it's not a note, it's an IM or an email. Doesn't matter. So few people do that, but it stands out tremendously when you actually hear back from someone you've interviewed with or you interviewed, and they do a follow-up. It's like, wow, okay, I like that. So few people truly embrace and seek out feedback. Confront your biases. We all have biases for how we were raised, where we were raised, and as we kind of move through life, we start out in kindergarten to first grade, and everyone's in the same class. And then over time, we begin to go to our friend groups, and then we get to high school, then we go to groups that are maybe based on extracurricular activities. And then we graduate, we enter the workforce, and we seek out people that are like us, generally, which makes sense. We like to be around people who are more like us, share the same perspective, ideals. None of that's bad, but it does mean that biases now tend to get a little more cemented, because unless we intentionally seek out people who think differently than we do and have discussion back and forth, then we're going to get more locked in on things we don't even realize we're locked in on. And it really is the cognitive biases or thinking biases that can really mess us up. One that's happening right now, or people are worried about in this hybrid work environments, is proximity bias. So let's say that I don't come in the office at all. I work fully virtual, and you come in every day, and our boss goes, I'm not sure about Pete. I don't see him, and his work's okay, but man, he's like, wow, he's here every day. He's in early, stays late. I talk to him, and the connection's not even there about, well, am I being unfair based on someone being there or not? That's what's called proximity bias. In proximity, those people will get more opportunities for job, promotions, training. It's especially a point of concern for women, because if you look at the data in aggregate, women are more likely to want a flexible and work from home schedule than men are. And so there's real concern that's going to, over time, be damaging for anyone who has that bias put against them. But just to understand what clouds you're thinking, and again, talk about it, with your teams. Well, I'm biased towards, if you know one, I'm biased towards people who graduate from this program. I was an engineering major at University X, and I think they turn out the best engineers better than any other school in the state of Arkansas. Okay, maybe that's true. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but that's an example of a known bias where you say, I am biased towards this person or type of person or profile or program or company. So that's one thing, but to talk about it even in that context, they say, look, I know I probably have some other biases I'm not aware of. Help me see those, right? Talk to your team, help me be aware of what's happening, of what I'm saying or thinking or not saying or thinking that could be a bias. So confronting those will help you make much better decisions as a leader. And finally, the fifth one is to cultivate your network, right? Find colleagues and mentors. And I know we talked about mentors a couple times before. The concept of a mentor is someone who is approximately 20 to 30 years older than you, who has all the wisdom of the world that she's sharing with you over the course of your career. That's pretty much gone for different reasons. And sometimes someone can be a mentor without being called a mentor. They're just someone who maybe has an experience that you haven't had yet that is willing to share that with you. You can be very focused. You can have a mentor on a topic. I'm trying to become better at finance. Who's someone I can bend their ear on finance? I want to become better at understanding, what exactly is AI and virtual reality. I mean, I go to movies, but I need someone to help them understand that. So mentors can be by subject, they can be short-term, some can be long-term, but finding people who have traveled a path that you haven't yet traveled, whether they are, by the way, they can also be younger. A lot of reverse mentoring is happening now. A lot of older executives are mentoring with 20-year-olds because they're digital natives. I mean, they've always grown up with a phone. I mean, they were, 2-year-olds at a tablet, at a restaurant. They've always known technology. So older executives are mentoring with younger ones to understand how that works, which is a great dynamic, right? And then it can work to where the younger person can get some mentoring from the other person saying, so how do I navigate, a corporation for life? at this point. So finding colleagues and mentors who can really be in your network. And, for me, networking is always been a bit of a, plus or minus kind of thing. On one hand, I love talking to people. On the other, I'm an introvert. So if I've got to go to a room of 100 people, I know two, and I got to walk through, I'm kind of like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. It's not, does it bring me energy? So I think about networking as who is someone who's interesting to me that I feel more about, and maybe could I help them in some way, right? And that's, for me, that works well because it's like, okay, I'm networking, but I'm not networking in the way that stresses me out. So I think about, what do I have to offer? Sort of like a potluck. What am I going to bring to this meeting that's going to be hopefully something that someone can find useful? And then maybe they can help me out at some point as well. So 5 things to consider, kind of drawing on the thing talked about today, plus last month, and on our first session on building trust. So happy to take any questions that anyone has for now. Sure. I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. I will have a couple of quick comments about, because I like the point you brought up that you're right. I intentionally show scale as this way, and then ideally it plateaus way, now it's 5 million up, right? Oh, yes, sure. Thank you for the reminder. So the question in the room was, if you have I'm going to paraphrase, so let me know if I'm on point. If you have a situation where you need to scale, and you've got clarity of time frame because especially because it's event driven, but you also know because it's event driven, you have to scale down afterwards. How do you scale up effectively for that, knowing that it's going to go down afterwards? It's a great point because there could be times where even if it's not a complete downward trend afterwards, there has to be a certain push. You've got to scale faster over a short period of time. And it's going to be an expense, but it's an expense bubble. So it's variable, meaning that maybe for 18 months, I'm going to use a technology example, you hire 20 contract developers to write code. But then you're done with that after that because of product set. In this case, you may have to scale on a variable perspective of, for 18 months, you need resources, and you maybe decide to use contractors because you don't want to go through the employee route. And so you have to find a way to, from a labor perspective, to do that. And we can talk more about that, but there are definitely ways to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And just for more context for online, it was about the company makes paper products that you wear, and the specific product are sunglasses through an eclipse. And I was living in Vancouver, Washington for the last eclipse and had multiple pairs of those sunglasses. So, and they're kind of important because otherwise, right, they'll burn your retina if you don't have the right eyewear. So that's kind of cool. It's coming to Arkansas. Yes. What should a leader do when they're feeling burned out? Oh boy, that is such a, first of all, context. The fact that mental health is spoken of more openly and freely than ever before in the business setting is such a good thing right now, by the way, because probably even 5 years ago, burnout would just meant, why don't you take Friday off and come back Monday and, you'll be good. So it's burnout for leaders, especially through the pandemic, has become something that's like this constant topic because it is so prevalent, and it's prevalent at every level of leadership, whether your responsibility is 5 people or 5,000. If you're burned out as a leader, first thing I think of is you need to write down a plan on how to stop being burned out. So it's not as simple as taking a Friday off, as I mentioned, right? You need to sit down and say, okay, why am I burned out? What's causing the stress, right? So you need kind of first sort of diagnostics around that. 2, you need to find someone who's a trusted resource. And that could be someone, in your family, a friend. The caveat there is they need to be objective too, right? They need to be someone who could be blunt with you, even if it hurts, and someone's an active listener, because you need someone to share your perspective with and have them listen and give you their perspective back. But that diagnosis is going to be key, and the sounding board is going to be key. From that, then you can actually put together a plan and say, okay, what do I need to do? How did I get here, right? Because I don't want to fall back into it. How did I get here, and what's going to be done differently? And realizing to change a plan or to put a plan like that in place it's probably a lot of very small steps, because you can't just say, well, I'm going to quit my business or I'm going to walk away. It's going to be a series of very small steps to get there, and some very hard choices, because you may be stressed because you're checking on everything and you don't have to. Maybe you're doing some things you don't need to. And so you're going to have to face some hard choices. And that's why having that resource is so important. Someone who can be at that sounding board, kind of coach you through that. Another question. Sure. How should a leader address a team that's burned out? Okay, let me think about that for a moment. So I'm going to make a couple of assumptions, which correct me if I'm off from the questioner. I'm going to assume that you as a leader have a pretty good relationship with this team already, so that you have built some trust with them, right? We're not starting from below zero. So you've got some trust. And if the team's burned out, then I would, well, first, if I'm, can you, do I know the team's burned out because they told me individually and collectively, or am I guessing, or am I assuming they are? The person, give me some context. Okay, so they're burned out. Okay, all right. So I would, the very first thing I would do is I bring them together in a room, virtually or otherwise, and I acknowledge it. The first thing I would say is, look, I know you all are burned out. I know we have been going 90 miles an hour forever, it feels like. So I know you're burned out, and we're going to do something, work together, we're going to get this fixed. I'm not sure yet what it is, because the first step is for us to talk about it, but we're going to get it fixed. And so that's the very first thing I do, is I was acknowledge that. Now, I'm assuming if it's a smaller company, probably, you don't have an HR resource to go to, right? So that's when we go back to colleagues and mentors. So if you are the owner of the company, it's a small team, you don't have other resources to help you in this, that's when you definitely go to a colleague and mentor and say, here's my situation, what should I do? If you came to me and said, what should I do? I would say, have you talked to the team? Yes. And then I would walk you through a whole process, like the individual leader, diagnostically. Why are they stressed? Tell me what's going on. Tell me about the personalities you have in your team. Well, I've got 3 drivers and 2 people who are super reflective. And so is there tension in the team? Yes, they argue a lot. Okay. I would just really dissect all that to understand the personalities and the context they're living in, right? What's causing that stress and causing that burnout. And once you get all this information, you can then sit down and say, okay, so how's the plan, the baby steps forward to get that? Because you made a commitment to the team that we're going to put something in place. And in the next 30 days, you've got to come up with a plan that says, here's how we're going to make that better. So if we had more time and detail, there's more things you can do, but at a high level, that's how I would approach that. Any more questions online? No? Yes, sir. Oh, sure.
Working on first versus
right. Right. That's a great call out, because you're right, and both are important and accurate, meaning that, for example, if you're not good at let's say the details, right? You hire project managers or process people, or if finance and accounting is not your background, you make sure you hire someone who has that expertise to kind of shore up your own shortcomings in that regard. We're here as far as a leadership shortcoming. I think you can outsource. We'll call it a more technical view, not technical like IT, but finance and accounting, marketing, sales, something that's not your strength, right? Some of us are natural, can go out, never meet a stranger, business development, easy. Some are like, I'd rather do anything else. So you do want to surround yourself with talent that augments yours or what you don't have. But in terms of the leadership piece, so for example, building trust, that's not something you can outsource. Communicating to your team what's going on, being candid about that, that's something you you can't outsource. That's to me. So I love that question to clarify that. So in this case, a shortcoming is not, I'm not an expert in this area, or I'm not as good at this as I'd like to be. This is a shortcoming of really just a leadership perspective of how, how you lead. I'm not an active listener, so I'm going to become better at listening. I tend to be impatient. I'm going to find a way to, count to 15 if I have to, be more patient, as opposed to I'm going to surround myself with talent that I don't have myself. Great clarifying question. Other questions? No? All right, well, I'll just say this. Feel free, if you want, reach out to me on LinkedIn. The email address is there. Connect, because I don't know what the magical number is on LinkedIn for connections, but I'm not there yet. So you feel free to connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. I blog regularly about leadership and post it to my webpage. Happy to chat with you guys. We'll talk to you in just a moment, but feel free to reach out to me after today. And thank you all for your time.